In Bannerlord, there are 5 offerings of shock infantry in the game. I classify shock infantry as infantry with heavy weapons, no shields, whose job it is simply to kill. If you're looking for shield infantry guides, then click on the card above, or you'll find a link in the description for my shield infantry guide. As always, for those of you that want the short answer, the answer is the Sturgian Heroic Linebreaker. These are the best shock infantry in the game. They have the highest skill with their respective weapon, they have the second highest damage output of all the people on this list, they have the highest armour and the highest athletic score of all shock troops. For those of you ready to tell me a new one in the comments, let me first explain my findings. But before we go any further, we must address the elephant in the room. The Battanian Veteran Folksman. Now this is the only unit in this list that actually gets worse as you hit T5. The issue with the Veteran Folksman is that upon hitting T5, they lose their Folks, which is their two-handed sword, that has a perk for shield breaker just like axes do. And instead they get a polearm, which looks like a Folks but is on the end of a 2-meter long stick. Now when you're in a field and you have enough room to swing it around and make the most use of it, it's an incredibly powerful weapon that does a lot of damage. But in most situations, you are completely chamber blocked and cannot get a good swing, and they just fall en masse. So for the most time, it's completely useless. That is why they are the first to drop off of our list. They have a main weapon that is very situational and otherwise useless, and no one-handed weapon to back it up. All they've got is some throwing axes. So that is why they end the list here. Now their T4 variation, the Folksman, although good, is lacking against the others in pretty much every way just because it's T4 and not T5. It's got less skill and less armour, but it still has a really good weapon. However, if you're doing a battalion only playthrough, I would take the Folksman, just not upgrade them past T4. Now, I need to be clear, the remaining 4 units are not bad in any way. They are all viable and have their strengths, but I'm looking for statistically the best. The Palace Guard is up next on the chopping block, and despite being the most drippy, it has the lowest armour value of the remaining 4. His weapon is actually the strongest, and with a wide blade and the second highest swing speed, they are very formidable, but they also have no one-handed weapon to fall back on. As these guys should be in the thick of it, their low armour just isn't viable. It's still a very good unit, just not the best. Next up on the chopping block is the Valandian Volgier. The Volgier has good all-round stats. He has the 3rd best armour, a spare one-handed weapon, some throwing axes, and a decent polearm. He is literally the jack of all trades. He's very mid-table. The problem is he doesn't have the best of anything. So despite being perfectly balanced and perfectly reasonable, he's not the best in any metric. So at this point, he's out. Now I can't pronounce the name of the next one, so I'm just going to call them Menas. The Elite Menevilation, whatever the hell that means. We're left with the Elite Mena and the Sturgian Linebreaker. Now, the Mena is a good troop. It's got great armor, great skills, a decent weapon, and it is a formidable presence on the battlefield. But it is outshone by the Linebreaker in several different situations. So to run through that list, he has -10 on athletics, he has -20 on the weapon-specific skills, he has a 130 polearm, whereas the Sturgian Linebreaker has 150 two-handed. He has -7 on overall armor, which is, to be honest with you, negligible. -55 on swing speed, -79 on damage, -50 on throwing skill, but it does have +50 on the one-handed weapon, and it does have a spare one-handed weapon. But for these reasons, the Linebreaker just outclasses the rest of the shock infantry offerings. As I said in the beginning, the Linebreaker is just far better in every way, but the Sturgians are the infantry-focused kingdom, so it's not really that surprising. If you pair these guys up with the Sturgian Heavy Spearman, you've got an infantry line that is both formidable and deadly. If you have anything to add, then please leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.